Ja, okay. Ich PLBO.你和早期呢自己来吧。Ja, okay. Yine de vet jag. Det är inte uttryck av det lavsmakna. Den har kabarkiga man också. Vänta, han är inne min. Det är tjejs. Vad det gör man då? Dala damar jibe ra no bar jibe ge tarwa don tam chin chembe war de ju bara je ba tam ji je jibe ma nam ka dan yam be sem chen tam ji de wa dan de dong ra dan ji Nyordu lana me bara yanta bara zobe janju rembo che to bara chai dala damara jibe ra no bara jibe ge tarva dam jien jembe vardu ju bara jiba tamshi je zu chebe ma nam ga dan yambe sem jian dam deba dan den dung ar dan tre nyor de la na me bara yang da bara zo be chang ju ren bo je to bara cha.
All mother sentient beings, limitless space. All mother sentient beings, limitless space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and of nations, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment.
Te chi tu sam ma je je va de lunga ye son ge va la go ma she va de lunga ye son ge va la go a tu te ren ne son de ne ma san da zam je va de lunga ye son ge va la go.
From that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
而且长期这种投入他们来透过保证里边工作对存在这边的每下自己他妈也他们就让做不完的说都要注意心情。이나 zui to yo sama na zen zui ma to mten to rei do sama. Ina, also the last mi khwana ki me wa de.
Sorry, everyone. Sorry for the interruption. Looks like Ina is not being able to join the Zoom. So it looks like it's going to take a few minutes.
Ina.
Oh, back so sorry, I had some technical issues. My computer. 나 놀래 지금 지금 바빠야.
Amina.
아, 어떻게 잘해?
음.
음,
다 카르산티 고바 테리 마레.
이거 잘해.
고바 차로 삽니다.
말해. 오케이. 잘했어,
이바
잘했어.
차로 세로.
야, 감사 고마워. 야, 말해. 음,
我在没方面求救些提醒到了，到国外的，在国外的，说不进去呗，累计求救没方式，但你们俩要不在凶呢？但俺大晚上不影响，我挺热情的，现在说大晚上不影响，挺热情的呢，先把他帮着，那这个嘛的也是，另外给叫来说，真的就是帮着嘛的也是，就这的，都是要不送过的是，这别想着这块就用了，这块连那个上街头过嘛是吧？我记得这几天从我工作呢，有就去从那社区保养东车那个了，但社区保养这块去个嘛的，可是去那个这块用的这社区保养嘛东路边也是，我这种有多天的，我天的是啥的也是。
So we come to our next point. And so that is in our text is number 8, in Drupal's text is number 9. And so it says here, wait a minute. What is it? The tuba nuba menadira.
但主要就叫那需要被留起就没碰死了多，
무슨 톡선데나나.
但是你把这个对吧的都是听你认着什么了意思？
Ja, maar sorry, I have to it's a
那可能是。
so I don't know, I guess so okay, I guess it's a physical anyways, so it's like we're just gonna translate from a Tibetan. So even so the physical activities, yeah. So don't abandon physical I guess don't reject physical activities that involve discipline and effort.
当然，
Also, and then Ruben said, so that means that so even if you think that I hold a high view, advanced, still, it's not okay to then give up any virtuous activities that we do with our bodies, and that's because as long as we don't engage in also outward discipline, so virtuous practices, we can't reach enlightenment through the opposite, through non-virtuous practices. And Chitin Sumgan said in the Gongchik that even if someone has reached the 10th bhumi, the 10th bodhisattva bhumi, if they still commit a negative deed and negative act, they can all fall into the lower realms. And so in general, Drupa says somebody on the 10th bhumi would not actually commit such a fault. But if they would, Chicken Sumgan says, then even they would fall into the lower realms.
真的，他做过强调性的东西，你把这广播的这些强调性的东西，我呢这些比我呢，他不那样没办法。我当时做多少个呢？就当这多少的嘛，多下了哈这做的课程呢，但是给我的，给我的，这做几个学的，但可是呢，这做别想着是那个做恰先这些那的，这绿的做这是当时穷是多呀，这个练的这下过我晓得。 قال دي شاغر واشات هندي وتنا ديك تنا قولت当时穷成这样，在刚刚的下过的真的差些话，他连那留去这把讲出表，我这俺呢，这留去这把讲出表。 我这留说托他那办 drop 是推荐桥被留抢，他抢车是我留抢车过来是，抢车我果然到那里，我真的是果然到那给别看到那是没给为什么他说这些用过嘛的，我听的这些车上的吧，他一个人这些那一个给我在别家弄这样到了说听呢， 我提起那这么多当地呢，这个每个月这么多学个嘛哇，我这期学班部啊说的，学班呢学班这说说，他是那把干学班部呀，留做不去了，没几个是，我这呢在多边啊个老吧，别讲了，别讲老远了，别讲老远了，因为那别讲是从大是这么多东西那嘛老呢，啊这里点那偏多去了哇，啊这样那啊这没关系，这样我这秋天啊这现在偏多这么多东那秋天啊那。我这最近的我的是问他的是问他是别些就是我听到一个人这就这个人这确吧金巴汤年汤老汤两把汤气汤发动气吧呢从项目工把我是就把这打这就是这就啥我听那就把这就把这去打开当年那做那碰不把的没就我的那做那么咋做别的意思但是错你不是娘们做过去做那么错的一些错的是的呢我说那个对了呗那罗巴说那晚点点真久啊这晚没别没错啊从你今天过了这晚没进那罗巴始终多我听到我啥的
And so it says that so although our primary focus should be on cultivating the mind, on cultivating bodhicitta, and meditating on emptiness, finally realizing emptiness, these must also be integrated with skillful means. So therefore, one should not abandon physical dharma practices. And if your body is able and it is manageable for your within your time constraints, you should engage in various physical dharma practices. For example, like performing prostrations. Because when we prostrate, for example, when we make prostrations, then our mind naturally turns toward virtue. And so through the prostration, we have to make an effort. So if you put in this effort, then the effort of doing something virtuous that's physical, you're purifying your physical defilements, the physical obscurations. And that is because your mind goes there. So naturally, for example, if you do a prostration or a circumambulation, a physical virtuous activity, during that time, the mind stays virtuous. You're just less likely to develop negative thoughts while doing a prostration or a circumambulation. So therefore, you should do virtuous things like that, or even also creating tsatsas, making tsatsas with your hands, or of writing dharma texts, or making offerings. And so these are primarily activities, virtuous activities performed with the body. But also, this includes some verbal activities. So actually, verbal activities in a way are also included in this physical category, because we are actually using our speech, our mouth to say something, such as reciting a text or reciting mantras and teaching and so forth, or physically also making offerings. And the reason why it all becomes virtuous is because you're doing these things with a pure motivation. And when you recite text with your speech, then your mind focuses on the meaning of what you are saying, and therefore it also becomes virtuous. And also sharing the Dharma with others. So in order to really benefit others, we engage in virtuous Dharma activities. And then it says in a text called the middle way beyond extremes. There it says, it mentions those 10 virtuous activities one should engage in. So it says writing spiritual text, making offerings, giving, listening to the Dharma, reading, memorizing, explaining, chanting, contemplating the meaning, and meditating. And these 10 activities create immeasurable merit. And so the point here is that we need to accumulate both the accumulation of merit and of wisdom. They both must be complete. Tilopa told Naropa that until you have purified all grasping at appearances, or in other words, until you have attained complete enlightenment, you need both method and wisdom, which are like two wheels of a chariot. So,
我真的这种是在我求求这办的阿的下的，但我就把真从不有的，从不我也都的是，都去打他经常在就那么去多花钱的，就那么多的，他基本上里面下的是也是给了清白的是，他家里那给他清白不来，他给他清白了吧？我天天差别来钱的事呢，但你妈的现车上的，那批长毛有了，他好了。这长毛有的在老话确实就是你们就开着个了，开呢，但呢，是个形式，它是个开呢，但呢，车上的个来是，我真的，我当年嘛，搞他们去，他给别人就是被你们俩全部去学啥的话，等于呢，每年的日普普一步，每年的日去三次个了，每年他们吃的日吃，这吃用的真的，公看那批长毛，你长毛马家。我这里按照换的绿色，加那绿色的绿色那么多的，看结果讲，我的这绿色对面的绿个吧，学的那么多，我这期我真的上送领导去科技边界小在，我的科技边界小在，你家出去了，就切上这边那么大事，但你嘛下去了，真的就我的但公司就拉不上，我这就我是上班上起来是那么大的。这那么恐怕那么大的这是两年吧，当时我的说上虽然呢，另外一种，求求没碰完，你把节油起过，这另外一种求求他帮助嘛，你把刚差不多说说让你可用，但你们俩起过去了，是你们俩起另外一种别开动的那起我在开的那起上面起过去了，也是留下过来那里车开动给就那起的。我在泡沫这边去，前段就有几，其实泡沫这边可能在没票下来，就变就是开始用那些，这上面那光脚中呢，缺把氧，是我的光脚中呢缺把氧，但人家的南通山车什么去了吧？人家山车就弄下来往上不是，这车把机，我再说了，给弄些电机了，年货是普给的是他切磋帮，给弄成通讯买机吧，现在切磋成通讯着，通讯买机吧，现在但呢，过年货普。完全把不成立起来的，他泡沫的话，多花是钱包的话，多花通过来提起来票的，那跟对是那个接受买几把钱，那个钱的是，这个那么把那不是我的，看着是多蛮的铺，我真的搞不清楚了，起码说这个不在泡沫出发，多换通过的呢，这个说那说下给吧，他说接受这个嘛的，看他说这个的是接种把钱哦是。
and it says that Lord Atisha was someone who had attained highest realization of tantras, and according to the sutras, he had reached the path of preparation. He was on high levels of practice and realization. He was renowned as a great scholar and accomplished master in India and Tibet. And still, even someone like him, he would diligently make tatas with his hands covered in clay every single day, making tatas. And so in Tibet, it's actually freezing cold. So even in the freezing cold of Tibet, when his hands would start cracking open from the cold, he would still continue to make tatas, recognizing the great merit that comes from making tatas. Also in the past, the Kadampa masters, although they were already highly realized, they were well known for making countless mandala offerings, physical mandala offerings. And after each offering, they had to wipe down the mandala and then arrange it again and wipe it down. So they kept wiping the mandala. And again, it's very cold in Tibet. And as they kept wiping the mandala in the freezing cold, by the evening, often their wrists their hands became cracked open and wounded. And then when they could no longer use the front part of their wrist, they would just use the backs of their hands to continue. They would just turn the hands around and would continue to wipe their mandalas with the backs of their hands. So that was their diligence, even though they already had high realization. And then there's another great master, Kashyapa, who performed the 10 Dharma activities in full each and every day. So, following the life examples of these great masters, regardless of who we are, we should never abandon physical and verbal Dharma practices, but engage in them as much as we can. Also, Pamodrupa himself had already high realization, but he never gave up on accumulating merit, even with his deep realization. He whatever he said that whatever resources I have, I arrange them as offerings to the three jewels, and on the full moon day and on the new moon day, so the 15th and the 30th of the month, and on the 8th day of the lunar month, and he would honor and serve the Sangha community, a Sangha community of 4 monks or more, without looking down on them. He would make Dharma offerings to the Dakinis and never dismiss any virtuous Dharma activities. So even with his deep realization, he would still practice virtue diligently, really showing that merit and wisdom must go hand in hand. So,
전에 다 주와 들어와 되니 뭐 지지바 주와 두고 가한다. 이도
mm-hmm.
좀.
I'm sorry.
다 주와 된 누바 총양 신동 삼바 마방스다 소소스 심지어 편 포토입니다. 강한도 펜셈 치고래스. 전에 펜셈 치도지나 대나 펜용삼지면 쳐버서 다다 자 신보 심지어 편 포토입니다. 펜셈도 맞지와. 지도 거래 삼바트 방요 말스 당에 그냥 용사 말에 다지 exam 되고 다 펜셈 지나 펜도 어디 맞아 지는 저기 말스 가리나 펜셈 지도 연대 가래가리야 심지어 펜 도야 그 용그래스 어제 펜셈 지도 제 노셈 제게 말와 노셈 지는 소소 디파 마모소 오는 거와 어제 펜셈 지나 데 펜셈 가래가래 지나 데 장초 셈도 제공야 펜기로 와真的偏是行动上吧，帮助马来西亚行动上吧，现在偏北上吧，帮助马来西亚，现在通气上吧。
And then we come to the next verse, which is here 10. So I'm just seeing that I think the reason why it was mixed up is because number 10 here doesn't have a number. So that's the very last one on our page. So it says, don't reject the intention to help others, even if your powers are feeble. So even if you have little power, do never abandon the intention to benefit others. If you can't, even if you can't help others in vast ways, just help them as much as you can, but don't think, oh, I can't do anything. There's nothing I can do. I can't really do anything to help others. If you have this wish, then there will never a wish that that altruistic wish will never grow from this. If you just think that, oh, there's nothing I can do. If you just have the wish, regardless of what you can or cannot do, if you have the wish to help, the opportunity to help will happen, will come. At the very least, if you can't do anything to help, then at least you should not have any negative thoughts or even wishing to harm. And if you always have this mindset of wanting to help if you could, then from that, bodhicitta will eventually and naturally arise. And this is then how the actual ability to benefit others will also grow. So.
전에 대다라스 다다곰 주som. 다곰 주베 그냥내 강타 강치나스 다곰 주바 다와레 곰바레 주바 냠내 가르치나. 我将就那些做些现在通常，做我在他是现在通常，俺让说在你们那去呢，在马能把当年的身边在前面现中的，身边中的他运动个话，在做我的在俺做偏心，他们可能给我的身边通出去，咱们什么东西，我去呢，我在弄学的话，我在这用把拉布，是我拉布，是可来说拉布呢，我不是强求现在。 结果那里考不着啊，等于你刚刚说可能做那么要空的拍，不要先拍什么的，我这空的拍这个话，别讲买穷送的，可能要碰着家，他今天买钱不吃不了，别在那些这个说这，可对于那这现东什么东西，可对于那几多人，真正现在拍下什么小钱的咯，拍下多特别的旅游个的话，我这对他们几个他设计，对吧就把这样说的呢。你把穷样是你把穷完些吧，那接了，他敲在钱不到吧，多怀疑了啊！我他敲在钱不多的人的人那的，maybe 绿节往人丢，就那上节我从周中就把咋嘛，我但是多换通报，敲在钱不多换通报满意吧，我在上节去在，他在我从上节那些什么家通气出呀，在就是多会去用点这种马早那是，我真的在现在平时没去怎么的，帮助没得事。
And so this emphasizes this verse here emphasizes that in any Dharma practice of practicing the view, meditation, and Dharma conduct, you should always train in this mindset of wanting to benefit others. It is said in the Bodhicharya Vatara, think mainly mainly think of benefiting others. So this is what you should think about all the time, even if your ability is small. So we always recite these prayers, these opening prayers. May all mother sentient beings, limitless space have happiness, and so on. We repeat these prayers because we want to train our mind in an altruistic mind. And that takes some habituation, some training. Bodhicitta doesn't arise all at once. It grows gradually. Just like a small fire, and if you carefully nurture this fire, it will eventually grow stronger. So if you always keep the wish to help others, that intention will grow, and eventually you will truly be able to benefit others, and you will have a vast mind of bodhicitta. So this verse here, this line here, even if your ability is small or even if your powers are feeble, this refers to the fact that although you may have realized some aspects of Mahamudra, but due to the limitation of this physical human body, which is the object of karmic ripening, you may not yet possess the full power to actually benefit beings like a Buddha does. So that's meant with saying even if your powers are feeble here. So because of that, because we have this limitation of our body, our abilities are also limited. So
我的那出现了一些送我的是那一课程呢，我们节呢多花下量是日日送样，我自己多花美女是多花美女是，我但我们是的小事情我们这节动呢，我们这吧，他说我自己多，他他妈怕那么多多出个嘛的，是的是搞的卡不有的是说，你嘛可能这花钱收钱不有的话，这样的对对，他妈那么多出个嘛的是，别想着想那你嘛晓得吧，那没把。上江是没把上个的是，你嘛他不知道些出些大要嘛的。差不多这种嘛学徒个嘛的，是个没对吧？真难一的是，我这边的真难一的，但俺说南上这些东西特别，咱想说什么的，这啥这修是基础是怎么的？这是个来看不的，是那俺说，咱别晓得你嘛的想的可来出修写的路，那真的差不多就学这个了。我别真难一的，俺说了在强调什么的，要求写的钱，先别drop 出来，是用这把的意思。
And then a great master Lingchen Rinpa had said that although realization has dawned from meditation, as a beginner, one cannot easily reverse clinging to the true existence of things. It is like how when the sun first rises in the morning, although darkness is already dispelled, it cannot yet melt the ice. So meaning that even if you have some understanding of Mahamudra, even some realization of Mahamudra, still it's difficult to fully realize the whole extent of reality just like that. And that is also due to our deep-rooted habitual patterns, the imprints, the karmic imprints in our mind. It takes time to melt them. So with one realization, they will not just instantly just go away. And so, for example, like when the sun first rises in the morning, there is light, but the first morning sun is not yet warm enough to melt the ice. But later, as the sun keeps rising throughout the day, it gets warmer and warmer and eventually can melt the ice. And so similarly, when we want to benefit others, we cultivate bodhicitta, but it's difficult to immediately have all these abilities. So it takes time, it grows, just like the sun becoming warmer. Our concern for others grows, and eventually it will become strong. And with that strength, eventually, with the strength of bodhicitta, we will become able to benefit others. Also,
那我做对别家都是那我特别行动起吧的，级别让动起吧，我听你不起吧都特别人那上级军队的了吧，起吧人我让出来皮但没些吧，我自己让动起来，但上级军队的行动起来上级去，我让做的让动着皮，这让动嘛着等可乱强的了吧，我听你不起吧让的有的是，你嘛这如果国内世界有是吧，我如果国内是老的是，空他是求我的也有啥了吧，小他是求问题的，等你嘛。제가 소쇼스 세세라 초랑 화쇼 세키지 말이스 nga 화쇼 즈부
Achok.
화쇼 요라 화쇼
Mhm.
화쇼 세키지 말이스 nga 테리 화쇼 즈부 세키지 말이스 테리 nga 니 보데는 nga 디 차요스 어떤 저런 아 존주체네 다 상제리스 nga는 레로 참 다른 크루한 참도리스 와 테리 다 드링에 저런 차지 인스텔라스 초월스 차지에서 我这强调什么的？那这上级小车都把这上级说说，那如果我们也上级头什么了？
Mhm. There's this quote that says, the Buddhas are enlightened because of their thought of others. And sentient beings, like children, only think about themselves, which is why we still wander in samsara. So just thinking about ourselves, we keep wandering in samsara. The Buddha is already enlightened because he cared more about others. There was a master called Drukpa Gunlek. Drukpa Gunlek once came before the Jowo statue in Lhasa, and he said to the statue, in a previous life long ago in southern India, you were born as a cow. At that time, I was your shepherd. You can call it a cowherd. I was your cowherd. At that time, I was doing a little bit better than you because I was the person, you were the cow. But then you practiced diligently and became enlightened, while I was lazy and remained in samsara. Therefore, today I prostrate to you. So the Buddha Shakyamuni, so the Jovo is the Buddha Shakyamuni, and the statue of him is in Lhasa. So the Buddha Shakyamuni attained enlightenment because of his bodhicitta. And we are not yet enlightened. We still wander in samsara because this is what we lack. So,
真的做饭你妈的吃粮食，吃这边吃的蛮美味，个люди，这边在南上在，听着，但是天劳动节进步起特别，听着，米头嘛的起，都进步起比女排样，穷是，起比推出蛮就完了，俺把那那讲是我的，在推出什么样的片头呀之类，现在推出没呢，差不多呀，这多块的空别个过去了吧。我的工作可培养你们俩去，这去对口呢，身边行动去上班没碰嘛，他们家忙他们家看起来，说我的身边行动的没碰的，这肯定那他去过来是，这就是没哪里巴拉，但是来穷，他就是说已经把学都没过是，怕了身边同的去这去了吧，这去的就是没来个，但俺身边同的住的地的，他虽然没的是，那就让上那边他上嘛的住的做个的是。 我这那面小头呢，这主点 drop to it。我这什么钱同呢？真的这主点起 to it 你们那些呢？我这种多，我等到一般的。
Mm. Um, so similarly, even though the the sun of realization may have already dawned, so the result has not yet ripened. The complete result has not yet ripened. So, nevertheless, even if you don't yet have the ability to benefit others vastly, or there has not been an opportunity, or there hasn't been the right time, or you're staying in solitude, like in a retreat to deepen your practice, and you are not around others to help them, still, you should never give up the wish to benefit others. That should still always be in your mind. The one time Rijungpa told Milarepa, he says, don't always stay in retreat. You should also go to to people, go to town, mix with people, to serve sentient beings, to help sentient beings. And even though Rijungpa insisted, Milarepa said, actually, my meditation in isolation, that actually is the greatest benefit to sentient beings. I always have the wish to benefit beings. So my practice is the best way I can benefit beings, and it also is the best offering to the guru. What's that?
真的，当俺做这些老人呢，有啊，可是那的，左边上去先偏下面就中是东岸嘛的大点就了，这东岸嘛的大点就，俺让做什么在让在对外用呀，让他让考试都对外用呀，但是什么东西嘛，当我说东岸什么提出的就了哇，我东岸嘛的大点就来，左边上去先偏就。从但左边上去在先偏下面的中国的是我对对，但先偏下面的用呢，在说东岸自己穷的中国，他当时可是现在东岸切给了哇。我听到在当时的熊庄嘛，东岸才穷给了哇，左边上去先偏下面那种，这些到底现在东岸他杨大姐吧，就是老人一种是吧？我这到底的现东岸说结果的是就是老人的一种多。
In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. And therefore, completely exchanging your own happiness for the suffering of others is the Bodhisattva's practice. So all that what we want is we want our own happiness. But this is precisely where all our suffering comes from. It comes from this wanting of our own happiness. Whereas the Buddhas, they are Buddhas because of altruism. So the more altruism you have, the less suffering you will experience. In other words, the less self-clinging you have, the less suffering you have. The more you think about yourself, the more you will suffer. So therefore, it is the Bodhisattva's practice to exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. So.
我真的咱先偏来了，特别讲这些人吧，大都掐死，看了上吧才有的呢，这了真的通过去修，是我真的先偏来了，就那把听不明了，第三上吧他可能那去过的，我这上吧才有呢，真的的通过可来也修个的是。
So it is said, therefore, even if you lack the power to benefit others now, always keep the intention. Whoever holds that intention will, in time, be able to carry out their intention. So.
我真的，忙我把这提同大的修，真的种真的就是我这忙我被劳动情况中的中啊，意思我这真的这么当中，忙我把劳动在穷了，从这来讲呢，这个这我们这边去多花中心，我那么的是我这多花的是中的，这我那么这个的身边是身体，可是马从我身边从其他小事，我这里去我那这个的是。我真的张八节的去，如果张八节的去，可是马从话等这边通，下年被参加新报这个的是，下的忙那么交通忙不得个的是， 我这女性代表肯定就领他们去，是我这咱没那么就要，做我这那前面怎么嘛年嘛些，开对呢在康都不在去过的也是。
So if you always have the wish to benefit others, there will come a time in the future where it will be fulfilled. You will be able to benefit others. And so with this in mind, Lord Pagmo Drupa said that train or cultivate this mind and make an aspiration to benefit beings until samsara is emptied. Also, a master called Dogen Tsangpa Gyari, he said that you have to make a great commitment, thinking, I will act for the benefit of beings until samsara is empty. Each day, and do what you can. If you can, make hundreds or thousands of aspiration prayers, however much you can. This is a yogi's commitment, a yogi's resolve. So what matters the most is to do your best to cultivate your altruism, to not allow it to decline, and just do the best you can. So.
我真的咱写种吧，咱没办法求救写，但是没办法求救写这些也是。
So these are the 10 dharmas that should not be abandoned.
我真咱没办法求救在哪么写的，你们俩写的就你们俩写呀，写吧写完呢，咱嘛他写吧写呗求救写的，我到写吧写呗求救写的通过的也是。
And then, and so the practice, so these are the 10 dharmas, and the practice of not abandoning these 10 things and integrating them into the path arising from knowing how to practice those causes. And so therefore, the next section that we come to now are the 10 dharmas or the 10 things to be understood. That's 10 things we should know. So that know to be the causes for integrating those things into the path.
我在写吧就当部在那个的是那进那往出完都被里面就写吧写是，我在进那往他出完的是电板没把他写过的是，我在等下说电板没把写过的是，怎么出的了那有，那我有嘛在电板。那时候才来这话讲的，后天不这个啥，他话是你们这个人出来的，你们做的话下天就，那上电板没这呢，在多出来个来看过，但人家的怎么当的是当就来买这个。多出来个来看过的话，他那说看来这，看图这，其他们这，这是些人做个的话，我听着怎么当过的也是。
So the first thing to be understood, the first verse is understand that outer appearances are unreal because they are mistaken. So outer appearances are deceptive, and therefore we should understand them, know them to be untrue. So we hear that, we do understand that outer appearances are not inherently real and unreal. Although we know that, it's not so easy to really see that all the time because they look so real. They look so real because of our karmic imprints, our habitual patterns, which are so powerful. And due to these habitual tendencies, delusion always is with us, always with us. So we maybe we can understand this in sort of intellectually. We can understand. We may really understand it and believe that this is how things really are, but it's still difficult to actually realize this. But still, even though it's hard to realize it right away, you have to keep going, and slowly, if you continue in the practice and do your best, your perception of reality will improve.
我真的在这样说这我恰当没什么机会去，就是我在外今天去那么原因，我在恰当没什么这样的，在外头去那么原因是的，我这恰当你朋友嘛些，我这在某里啦，我看几天钟我这去他在亚松的恰个的都从当个的，听你不要不恰当这样，就听我你问我嘛些，我这在某些。 어제 저당 무슨 집에 교세 자와 지나와 있어 나와들라다 자마나 통으로 상대 야고 쇼원 통을 더 차로 그래 상대 두고 쇼원 통을 될 때는 마가 요소리 대자냐 맨한 용거리 자냐 보청나 돼요 나도 소소셈가 가와도 뽑아놨지 자만한 쇼나데 안 소투고 말아 어제를 제 차원데 자당 무슨 데리 난다 그러고 쓰대 그런도 효사로 가는
And so this verse here refers to how the root of attachment, aversion, and ignorance, how the root of these three poisons, or how these three poisons arise mainly from the external appearances. So they come in contact and then they arise. So the external appearances kind of cause these poisons, they trigger these poisons to arise. So Thigden Songren said that so there's attachment and there is aversion, and ignorance is the mind that doesn't recognize attachment and aversion. So we don't admit that we are attached or we have aversion, and we always justify. So this unwillingness to see our real attachment and aversion that's ignorance. And so then if we keep not seeing this, whenever you see something that you like, you get attached to it. Whenever you see something, you hear something you don't like, then you develop an aversion, and you always have a good justification, so you don't recognize this process, and that is called ignorance. And so this is naturally happening to us because there are these myriad appearances that constantly show up as all kinds of things around us. And we constantly are caught up in finding something as very nice, very beautiful and attractive. And then again, something that we can't stand, something that is really very unpleasant, we can't bear it. And so it's because of that, because being caught up in this and never recognizing what is actually happening, that we keep wandering in samsara. So
전에 당원반조를 차지 만보 송고사 차지 방만 많이 차지 방토 말했어 많이 당스 유는 예반에서 유든 예반에도 그래서 전에도 수기만 이지 수기 다 수기 양타반만 이베 이지 영모주는 상황은 영모주 들어 상 그래서
then in the Abhidharma Kosha, it says the fault lies not in the sensory input, however, but in the mistaken way the mind perceives those appearances. And that mistaken way is that the mind does not perceive them as they truly are, but with a false conceptual projection. And so that these false conceptual projections, these cause all the afflictive emotions.
전에 다 나와 수자서 덴바르미나 양 수기 이지 그 덴바르송 수기 많이 받다 이 자리 수기 많이 봐이 살아서 어디 된 덴바르송 디오리 나와 수자 처로리야 덴바 초마 덴바르송 디오리 송도
And so therefore, although appearances such as form, sound, smell, and so on, although appearances have no inherent reality, this through a false and improper kind of a mistaken mental attention that we grasp at them as real.
저는 말람 덴바르송 저다 말람 덴바르송네 추신 전에 차단송 콜로고네 감송 콜벤 콜로지 와다 말람 베베람 나기리스 와드네 단 타포 사진 고트라 추베베는 말람 답지셔라 아쇼라 베 말람 답다 말람테 니코데도 말람 서마 좁데 나이거래 我别在那一阵，主要是那你写对的他trouble有嘛哇，别在那一阵嘛那么的那主要他把上那的那有让伊嘛着吧， 저만 무슨 제시 유지 맞아 봐.这是多少事儿吧？
And then, just as in a dream, in dreams, we grasp, we believe our dream experiences to be real. And due to this grasping, we circle endlessly through samsara. I'm caught up in cycles of friends, enemies, desire, hatred, and so forth. So, similarly, in our waking state, our waking life, we are confused by appearances, just like in our dreams. In the beginning of the jewel ornament of liberation, Gambopa taught that a characteristic or an example of confused perception is that they are like dreams. So when you are in a dream and you're dreaming, dreams seem real while they last. But upon waking, you realize that they never truly existed. And so similarly, whenever you realize, when all this confusion becomes purified, what you realize then is that this attachment and aversion and so on toward outer objects, you realize that all of these have never truly existed. So this is what the realization that arises when you realize that things are like a dream. So
我真的咋子了？我他妈的去那嘛的没那么心的，出完都把那电米都写过的。我到去那嘛的没那么出完什么电米那把没着把写过的也是。别人什么那么能就这那嘛子，你那嘛去那嘛没得去没去了，从就俺从通了吧，忙不有那样西北怎么当呢？没那么的，那么这年怎马头这年所看呀，有嘛的是我在这年所看呀有嘛的吧？我在那也咱们那俺做的没小对口，把小钱不，连把小在送的，好像你谁的说我那有怎么来的？听着电子在有让我怎么那没拿？我在那一当俺说电子抢着去的。这下呢，这可从后来讲着说啥的吧？如果泡沫特别中毒，如果泡沫特别光说啥，啥些地方俺修来个吧？我俺
Hanna, Sacha, Namshu.
俺下那修修，
Oh.
俺修来个吧？龙安，
Mhm.
但这泡沫出现了，啥些没得的话，现在
Mhm.
龙巴地面俺修着在那么多，
Mhm.
下地俺修去了，samsung你会加谁谁的？samsung的我没那意思。我这里开始是那的，没写当全部我来在用呢，你要为啥加谁谁强着强着是俺说的，我这没强求先那把你过来在用呢，我没现在强着的是，俺说可能中文有嘛是刚才说出去，这强当的这你们俩这里呢，这那这这中学的中多。
Mhm. So for this reason, we must first recognize that external appearances are illusory, are deceptive, like dreams, and lack true existence. In dreams, you might encounter enemies, friends, water, fire, different elements, and countless other things. But when you wake up and reflect on your dream, you see that all of this was just an illusion. None of that really exists. Sometimes it happens that we dream and the dream feels so vivid that even after waking, it still seems real for some time. And that's because our clinging to the true existence of things is very strong. So because our clinging to a real existence is so strong, often we can't even let go of our dream. It still keeps feeling very real. And so that's why we keep wandering in the three realms of samsara. So Drupa taught that, so he stayed in a place called Ngamshu. So he said that in Ngamshu, a person may see this place, sometimes this place seems like a hell of burning iron. And at other times, you may experience it as the Pure Land of Akarnishtam. And that is because of the mind. If a person's mind is filled with anger, the place Ngamsho becomes hell with burning iron. And when bodhicitta arises, it becomes a pure realm. The place doesn't change. It's still, I'm sure, it's the same place. But what changes is the mindset and the practice of the person.
어,
So,
대신 더 다들 나와라. 나 소원대요. 오메베 리파다. 오마 다들 리파다 현지나 전년서 니 해봐. 론 추바 추베게 다바잠네. 마토 전년시 리퀘키 지바 소바 마로 데다 전년서 야보 다시데 자세테 개편다 하려서 편도도 요마. 년세 어 자세제 그 노지 하려요마. 년세 편도 하는데 데세. 제 된도 요 말에스 야보 섬도 나다시나. 마로스
and so then when we analyze this through Madhyamaka reasoning, middle way reasoning, the distinctions of enemy and friend are recognized as mere imputation, labeled, fabricated by confused perception, a confused mind. They don't inherently exist and therefore cannot withstand logical examination. If you really think about it, enemy, friends, there is no real harmful enemy, and there is no truly helpful friend. Their identities actually may shift depending on various on our mind, on various conditions, if you really think about it carefully. So,
当然马路了，但那马路想的是，我真的搜给弄嘛当，这几款中这搜东巴我东巴你就搜是些了你人不能有吧，送把它来让进去抄吧就是一样没意思，这些店面就写罢了，突破写别突破写别写了的，真的怎么当或者怎么当，真的他如果没写了，人些，出去嘛出现的人把的有那样，让叔叔来长波托嘛了。 토삼 공송 때랑 배배 값을 덴바르면도 덴바르 메이시 좀 나와라 이마다 버린도 잠베케 녜현이 바이나 대잠지 커봐 토마미 바네 덴바르 집에 덴지테 년보려 바인 배 편용 바드 미스 제스 다들 말로 상
okay. Oh, okay. Bottom is okay. So, so then it says, so similarly, everything else is empty too. What is it? Form, sound, and so on. In the Heart Sutra, it says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So nothing possesses any true independent nature. Realizing this realization unfolds in three stages. First, there arises the wisdom from hearing, then the wisdom from contemplating, and finally the wisdom that comes from meditation. For us beginning practitioners, even if we can't yet directly realize emptiness, hearing and reflecting can still give us a confidence that appearances are like dreams. And that confidence alone weakens our clinging to their reality, to the reality of appearances. And therefore, it becomes a powerful antidote to the root of suffering. So,
真的我嘛是这吧，是听到这种我的双南穷的了，太松啥吧嘛，就是东半年去从大，太松咱们啥个嘛，双南穷嘛，这种太松啥个嘛的，太松啥吧，咱们些给自把出过些吧，太松咱们现在自把把些图标，手不怕掐图标，它就偏讨有的些种没切入，在这呢，托上给就讲呢，我们看他的恐怕弄出去呢，我在这年人民出啊，他们去些的是我这年没把真出啊，他们些都是出啊这种。 别嘛，就家是吧，中途些样， Chuma, you know, what I'm two shakes and a matter that to look shown it's a lot of them much just.
Michiki Mingre.
Rindwa,
Oh, okay.
Ona Chenamala, Chua, the meet in last, non can assembly a dot of Chuba. You Thomas that did well, that's a
So, honestly. So therefore, the benefits of just even knowing about that, even if it's not realized fully, the benefits of that alone are immeasurable. In a text called the 400 Verses on Madhyamakam, it says that even someone with a minimal merit, also even someone with a small merit, if one simply begins to wonder about these teachings on emptiness, if one simply begins to doubt it, or meaning that one wonders about it, one asks question about it, this alone causes samsara to eventually collapse. Meaning that someone who has no merit at all wouldn't even wonder or question emptiness. It doesn't even come to their mind. So even just for one to think about it is of an incredible merit. And then through continued study and reflection and meditation, one's understanding deepens. And eventually, all confusion dissolves, and enemies and friends become the same. Here, this text mentions just as the precious Trishik, Tippen, Chogyal, Abema Chogyal Rinpoche said, one then becomes a realized Siddha, free from delusion. So now, if outer appearances are deceptive, illusory, and empty of real existence, one may ask, then what about the inner mind? Does the inner mind, the perceiver of these appearances, truly exist as a real self? So,
then that's an exam shashan. Then this a good manji home serva.
so with that, we stop here for this week and see you next week.
Yeah, then you can the dedication.
We do dedication.
You talk.
Hello, go.
Hello.
Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, heroes and heroines, yogini and assembly of dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, see you next week.
See you tomorrow morning.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Yes.